First of all, it's an honor and a privilege to be here. It's 2025. I'm still here in the physical. I cannot, tell you how happy I am. Where do I start? There's an Alicia before the diagnosis or the big adventure, as I call it, and there's an Alicia after the big adventure. And let me start with April 2021, when I got the call from my doctor. I was starting to feel some pain in the upper abdominal region. I was getting kind of yellow. So I went to see my doctor. And, it was it had been it's still the lockdown at that point in time. We were exploring the vaccines and so on. So everyone was a little bit in the edge, like what could be happening. So I went back to my doctor. He started running test after test, and he calls me a Monday afternoon and says, I cannot figure out what's going on. I need you to go to the ER. The only thing I can see is your liver and your pancreas are failing. And those are essential for you to keep living. So you better go to the ER. So my first thought was, but I don't feel like I'm dying, right? And he's like, go to the ER, please. So then I turned around. I told my husband, you know what, honey, I think you have to take me to the ER. The doctor says so. He drives me to the ER. He cannot get in. Remember, it's still locked down. So it's just the patient that goes in. I got in, they ran test after test. Finally, around midnight, they did a CT scan and they discovered a mass in the head of my pancreas. And at that point in time, they assigned a room and they allowed my husband to come in. The kind doctor said, hey, we don't have the equipment and the team over here to keep doing more research like a biopsy. And it seems that there's an obstruction and that's why you're getting kind of yellow. So we need to transport you to another hospital that is 2.5 hours away. I said, okay, perfect. So I can go home. My husband can take me there. And they are like, no, you're going on an ambulance and your husband can follow. So the next day, it was like the 2.5 hour drive all the way to the hospital. The doctors that were supposed to see me that day, because of many emergencies, they couldn't. So I was scheduled for the following day. So the team that was supposed to see me wasn't there. So I got another team the next day. And I went through the process of the biopsy. They went in, they put a stent to unblock any of the ducts that were being pressed by that mass. And I remember when I woke up, there was this amazing, kind doctor, Dr. Takar, that I see up to date. And he sat at the foot of my bed and he said, it's adenocarcinoma. It's cancer. He said, within all the bad news, there's good news because it seems to be resectable. We can perform a surgery and can get it out of you. Of course, when you hear pancreatic cancer, they've always told you, if we're going to get one type of cancer, get any cancer but pancreatic. So my first thought was, probably I'm gone. And all those thoughts that I was going to start enjoying life when I retire, probably I wouldn't make it to 65 to retire. So suddenly, all that analytical mind that was always planning for the future, it was like, it's gone just within a few hours. So that was a shock. And all those emotions with a diagnosis like this, like shame, like guilt, you're no longer the good girl. You're no longer the perfect girl. You're no longer the perfect wife, the perfect daughter, the perfect employee. There's a lot of shame and guilt. And as Celia was mentioning, it's so uncomfortable to sit in those emotions. Fortunately, I think that the universe and my guides and my angels had been preparing me for this. 2020, with the lockdown, I was introduced to the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza, and I read the book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. That was the first book that blew my mind, like, really? I'm so analytical. If I cannot see it, touch it, feel it, it doesn't exist. That's it. And this book was telling me all about the neural connections, how we actually create our own reality on the way we go from within. So everything comes from within and reflects on the outside. Of course, it blew my mind in 2020. I was like, really? And meditation? Do you want me to meditate like twice a day, 15 minutes? 15 minutes sitting my body in a chair for meditation. They were torturing me every day. But it was COVID, right? Lockdown. It was like desperate times, people, we need to do something. So I went through it. And by the end of 2020, it opened my mind. I went into different virtual courses that Dr. Joe had. And it's like, wow, that's so interesting, really. And then by the end of 2020, I got the intuition. I love horseback riding. And I found another partner in crime named Picasso. And in December, he was finally like mine. We were together. And when this happened, it was like, first of all, with the shock, everything I was learning and trying to practice went out the window. It was like my world was just crashing down. I didn't know if I was going to make it for 2 or 3 months. You hear the horrible stories about pancreatic cancer. So after Dr. Takar mentioned that and my world collapsed, then the surgeon came in, and he was such a kind person as well, Dr. Boone. And he said, hey, this is what we can do. I think you are very lucky because it's resectable. And they kept saying resectable, resectable. So I asked him, why do you do what you do? And he said, there weren't that many pancreatic surgeons, and I decided to dedicate my life to this. And he was so honest. And I guess at that point in time, my intuition was already telling me like, okay, you're going to be my surgeon. That's it. When I went back home and he said, okay, they scheduled the surgery, in the back of my mind, I said, there must be something else. And at that point in time, I already had Gaia, this higher consciousness network. And something in my heart told me there must be an answer here. And I started looking and looking and looking and looking. And then I found this interview of Regina Meredith with Bill McKenna that said a simple way of healing. I watched the interview. Then, of course, I Googled Bill McKenna and I see immunity gym. Immunity, cancer, maybe, right? Why not? So I get into this immunity gym that it's about breathing techniques to help your immune system. Said, hey, it's not gonna hurt, right? So I keep the medical route, the traditional one, but at the same time I find this other route. And I keep both. And my doctors, fortunately, the ones that I found, I was like, hey, and if I do this breathing, and if I do this and that, they were like, yeah, whatever you want to do, it's fine. And as I was navigating that, I also discovered the power of balancing your brain, the right hemisphere, the left hemisphere. There was another technique that through Bill McKenna was brought to my attention, cogno movement, that they used a third dimensional object and movements with the eyes and what they call pattern interrupts that helps you bring back your nervous system to balance, to that neutral space where the magic can happen. So as I was navigating everything, I was like, hey, initially they thought it was stage 1, right? So it's stage 1 cancer. I can go through the surgery. I can do it. There's no problem. I remember talking to my manager, and I was like, no worries, I'll go through the surgery, and in 2 weeks, I'm back. Like nothing happened. Well, I guess the universe and my guides knew that. So I go through surgery, and they discover it's actually stage 3. It's in the lymph nodes already. And that's when I thought, wow, I'm gone. I'm gone. That's it. I'm gone. What's the point? And as I was navigating that moment when you say I'm gone, and when you realize what you're going to miss is actually spending time with the people in the physical that you love, with your beloved dogs, with your horse, hugging your parents, telling people I love you. The contracts and the projects and the chat, everything disappeared. It's so easy to prioritize when you are there and you wish for more time with your beloved ones. And suddenly something sparked the thought, let me find survivors that have done that. And I remember Dr. Boone told me, if you want to research pancreatic cancer, do not Google it, first of all. And second of all, if you want information, go to pancan.org. And I said, okay, pancan.org, here I come. So I called them and I said, I have this diagnosis. I have stage 3. It's already in the lymph nodes, 8 lymph nodes. And 1/2 was left in me. So like a kind reminder, like, hey, I'm still here. Hello. So I said, find me someone that has survived that. And they found 2 and connected me with them. And I was able to talk to them. And one of them was already a grandmother that had this like in her late 40s, just like me. It was when I was 47 years old. And she was in the car already taking her grandsons and granddaughters somewhere else. And she was so happy. And she's like, you know what? I did it. If I was able to go through it, then you can go through it. So that my analytical brain that was so fixed on we are gone, forget it, then saw someone that was alive. And then more magic happened. One of the cousins of my husband, she has an aunt that she went through pancreatic cancer and Whipple surgery in her 40s. Right now, she's 81, running her own business and traveling and living an amazing life. I connected with her again. So that helped that analytical brain to say, hey, it's possible. If it's possible for them, why not for you? So between my doctors supporting me through the Whipple surgery that was so rough, I thought it was going to be very easy to try to reconnect your digestive system, because this avatar, this amazing body we have, it's a Ferrari. It's magic. It just, we don't have the manual to know how to operate it, right? So going through Whipple surgery taught me to be more in connection with my body. I had to ask even my body, like, what are we gonna eat today? Is it gonna help us? Is it not gonna help us? Your digestive system, when you go through Whipple surgery, they remove part of your small intestine, the head of the pancreas, the gallbladder, part of the stomach, and they reconnect everything. And they hope that your digestive system gets again the rhythm so that it can absorb nutrients and get the food. I was very lucky to find this intuition and these other empowering tools. And at the same time, my doctors, I guess, just my angels, knew the ones that I had to have in the process. Of course, they said you need to have chemotherapy because it was already in your lymph nodes. You need to have radiation. And I went through the first part of chemotherapy, but even my body wasn't agreeing with it. They were, as the doctor said, we are killing you in the process. We need to give you a break. It's too much. So I went into radiation. And I remember when I came back to the second half of the chemo, she said, what do you want to do, Alicia? There's no wrong or right answer. And for a doctor to tell you that, oh my goodness, I will forever be grateful to my oncologist for that. And at that point in time, I was more attuned to my body. And the body said, I don't want chemo. That's it. And with all the fear, because of course you always have the angel and you always have like the little devil saying, you know, you're gonna die. And that was November 2021 that I said, no more chemo, let's go into surveillance. And up to today, my last checkup was April. The next one is coming in July. No evidence of disease. Of course, I changed the way I was sitting, the way I was thinking, releasing emotions. That little girl that was a people pleaser, that had to be the good girl, sometimes she still comes back. And I have to sit still and tell to myself, why is this here? Or if I'm feeling an uncomfortable emotion, why is the uncomfortable emotion there? And I'm able now to sit with that uncomfortable emotion and see also my limiting beliefs and say what limiting belief needs to be true in order for me to feel that emotion. And at one point in time, I remember I said, what was the answer? What was the secret thing that healed me? I was focused on that. My analytical brain was like, there must have been one. And thanks to, reading the Radical Remission book and so on, I understood healing is multifaceted. It's not one thing. And what might have worked for me will not work for someone else, but it's many, many aspects of yourself that you have to look at in order to get the healing you need to be your authentic, in the end, your authentic self. Mm-hmm. And I'm still very programmed, and I still, as I say, sometimes I fall from heaven and I get into my old self and very stressed. I believe too much this physical reality. And then I have to take that moment to say, okay, I need to go within. The environment is reflecting too much friction. Why? What am I doing to reflect that? And sometimes I have to take time off. I have to cry my eyes out. I need to find help. I need to find the support. But it's just learning to be with yourself, listen to yourself, sit with yourself, and see what resonates with you. So if Alicia could go back to that 2021 event, she would say, you're going to have the biggest adventure of your life, but it's going to free you from all the limiting beliefs you've been programmed with to allow you to be your authentic self. And it may take time because, of course, once you are blessed with more time, the question is, I was left here. Why? Why was I blessed with this? And not that many pancreatic cancer patients are blessed with that. What do I need to do? What's my purpose? And then you need to navigate the waves of life and listen to what's coming. And that's why I started sharing my story last year. Being an introvert, I do not like to share the story, or I did not. But then I realized how many people need what I had because of someone sharing in 2021 her adventure and how she was living her life now after that I'm alive today. So to all the blessings, to all the angels, to all the guides, to everyone in the physical and not in the physical that were with me, I just want to say thank you. I forever will be grateful for these additional moments in this physical world, this additional time, and I will definitely not waste it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Alicia, for sharing your story. I truly believe that it's so important for women to share their stories because you never know who you're going to inspire or who you're going to give that little flame of hope to. And it always arrives at exactly the right moment. And that's the beautiful, beautiful thing about life. The one thing that for me, there's a couple of things that connect all of the presentations and our stories together that I've heard all three of you really talk about. The first is balance, really balance. The second is a holistic approach, authentic living, and really understanding your own unique path in life. The nervous system is quite important. The balance of hormones are quite important. Our immune systems are very important, and a holistic approach. And I think this can bring us all into well-being and also, again, really understanding that we're wired a little bit differently as women. And so one of our greatest powers is our intuition, and really learning how to listen to that. We have a question for Adele Wimsett from Soraya in the chat box. And I was wondering, Adele, if you could answer this. Could you
Sure.
Yeah, you've read the question.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. And I think it would be coming back to those foundational principles that are so hard generally for us to really instill in ourselves as adults, let alone, I don't know how young the girl is, but if we're looking at tweens and teens, I don't envy you trying to do some of the suggestions that I'm going to propose, because I have a tween myself and know what this is like. But we're looking at reducing inflammation, right? We're wanting to get that clarity. And quite often when women come to work with me, they think I'm going to offer some real complex protocols. And occasionally that might be appropriate. But I think something that the beautiful women here have shared today, there's so much in the simplicity and basic pillars of health around how we're nourishing ourselves, about how we're resting, about how we're sleeping, about how we're connecting. And so many of us don't have those things in place. So I'd really be prioritizing sleep. We need tween brains need 9 to 11 hours, really focusing on blood sugar regulation. This is such a biggie for our kids. They just tend to have a much more sugar carb-based diet, particularly when they're out of sight. And trying to stay on top of that blood sugar regulation, hydration, making sure they're getting some salts in their water, nutrient support in terms of omega-3s, magnesium, particularly magnesium glycinate is really good for calming everything down. And just trying to reduce overstimulation, I think, where possible, trying to get them out in daylight before 8:30 in the morning. Really trying to, I'm not suggesting this is what's happening, but, trying to pull the schedules back, trying to really honor rest and creating time to just be. I see so many young women who are just frazzled. So really sort of encouraging that space and getting them to track their cycle and living cyclically and understanding. There's a really incredible device called the Mira, which is MIRA, and it's at-home hormone testing kit. It's incredible. It will track your estrogen and progesterone and see exactly what is going on throughout the cycle. And she can start to see, is there a cyclical element? Is she ovulating frequently? The cycle doesn't establish itself properly until the early 20s. So I can see she's 21. Just might not be, she might be estrogen dominant, which would be quite common in that time. And just that real nervous system support. They would be those things, just coming back to that core pattern of health, circadian rhythm, getting that protein in, getting that hydration, honoring the rest, and trying to live cyclically as much as possible.
Thank you so much, Adele. I see we've got another question. Ivana has raised her hand. Ivana, I'm going to allow you to talk. Go ahead.
Thank you, Eleftheria. I'm trying to write it down, it wouldn't work. Thank you so much. It's been amazing to be listening in. I do have a question for Adele regarding my daughter. She's 17 and she's got some kind of swelling around just under her eyes and quite a kind of sinus kind of congestion, and she gets really kind of frustrated with herself about that puffiness that sort of appears under her eyes and around. And I just wanted to kind of, any kind of recommendations. I know Eleftheria mentioned possibly it's linked to liver and maybe things are not draining properly.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that comes up for me is obviously like the real obvious culprits, like her rest and regulation and her sleep. But I'm really thinking lymph here. What's happening with her drainage? What's happening with getting enough through of hydration, making sure that it's not just like water, but there's salts in terms of the electrolytes. But on the flip side, making sure we're not getting too much of the salty type foods or processed foods in there. Also, when we see this, particularly from a hormonal fluctuation, is there a pattern around her cycle that she's noticing some of this happening? So this puffiness can sometimes be cyclical. So you might want to see, is this worse in the luteal phase or the follicular phase? Is she ovulating? Is there this estrogen to progesterone deficiency? Also, just because you're saying sort of around the sinuses, I'm wondering if there's anything histamine that might be going on there. And you can get air purifiers. There's lots you can do around histamine, which I won't go on to here. Again, blood sugar can be one, because those spikes can really cause temporary inflammation, and blood sugar regulation is a biggie for our girls. So they would be some of the things I would look at, and even getting like a gua sha. I think our girls, you know, they love a little bit of pampering. Just getting that daily gua sha. I quite often recommend this to some of my women first thing in the morning, down the neck, over the face, to just help move some of that through.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Rajni.
Do we have time for one more question? Is it
Yeah.
possible?
Yes, of course.
Okay. So I have a question for Alicia. And Alicia, I truly admire your courage in facing such a life-threatening illness with such a bravery, with such a courage, and you have been through a lot of emotional turbulence. And I could genuinely feel you know, your emotions through your words, whatever the way you narrated your story. I think at some level it resonates with every lady, no matter whether they have gone through this phase or not, but at some point we all feel this kind of emotion. So that was very resonating story. And I'm just trying to understand, because you told through your presentation that you are very analytical, at the same time you are not somebody who likes to tell your emotions easily to the world. But if you are comfortable, would you like to inform us or enlighten us about about your formative years? Did you think you inculcated some subconscious habit that kept you strong through that phase of your life?
I guess if I go back to my childhood, I'm the oldest of the family.
Uh-huh.
So there was always this responsibility, because you are the first one, that you are responsible for your brothers and you are the example. So you are meant to be perfect, you're meant to be responsible, and if anything happens to your parents, you will take care of your brothers. And I guess that level of responsibility is what shaped a lot of my anxiety and my fears, and also my strength. I mean, if I look at it, it gave me the drive to be who I was up to 47. Now I had to change a lot of things in order to navigate my big adventure. But I guess I got that drive from, hey, I have a purpose and I have a reason to live. And then that shifted when my brothers were, independent and so on. It's like, oh, my parents, I am responsible for my parents now. And through my big adventure, I understood that that's a lot of luggage to carry. So I realized that each human being can actually carry theirs, and I can support them the best I can, and I can be supported as well, because that's important. I was taught to be a giver all the time. Receiving, I still sometimes have difficulty with that one. I'm still working on that wound. But I understood it's like breathing. You cannot just be inhaling. You will die. You have to inhale and exhale in order to get the right rhythm and be connected to who you are and how things should flow and work.
Right. So have you been practicing any meditation daily?
Yes, I love the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza, of course, his meditations, but I love other meditations as well, like the ones of sacred acoustics. And also I practice cogno movement, because that's very physical. So if you go to cognomovement.com, I've studied it just because it helped me a lot, even with pain. I was remembering that when I went through the surgery, they couldn't control the pain. And you know how with painkillers, they have certain windows of time. And at one point, the one in charge of painkillers said, I'm sorry, we have to wait. And I was in such pain. But then thankfully, to having that tool, I said, okay, So pain is connected to the brain. There was trauma. And I started just doing the movements, balancing my brain, and that helped me through it. I was without any painkillers after the second week, and I would manage only with muscle relaxers and lots of cognitive movement, I would say.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank